makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Jennifer Furlong. She is the founder of Communication TwentyFourSeven LLC, helping small and large organizations solve the complex communication issues. Hello, Jen. I don't know if I can call you Jen, but I know your name is Jennifer. I'm just gonna go
Yes,
with
absolutely.
Jen.
Please call me Jen.
What a good pleasure to have this conversation with you. You are the founder and CEO of Communication TwentyFourSeven LLC and have 30 years of experience in the communication field. So can you tell us more about yourself and your journey?
Yeah, wow, 30 years. I can't believe so much time has gone past. I like to, think of this as phase 3 of my career path, way back in the day when I was just graduating high school. I went into the Marine Corps and I served in active duty, with public affairs. And that was my first introduction to the communication field. I started out as a journalist and then I did some community relations. So by the time I got out of the military, I knew that this is what I wanted to do for my career path. So I was very lucky in that. It really helped guide me, in the direction and that direction I really loved. And so after the military, I went to school, got my bachelor's and my master's in communication. And, after that, I was a communication specialist for a little while. And I ended up teaching at the college level. I had one of my professors when I was in graduate school ask me if I wanted to teach a class in public speaking, and I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never taught a class before in my life. I asked him if they were going to pay me because I was a broke graduate student, and he was like, yeah. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll figure it out. And that kind of ended up, that was the start of phase 2. That's when I fell in love with academics. And so I ended up being a college professor for about 18 years now, teaching human communication, intercultural communication. Primarily, I teach public speaking. And then, just like a lot of other people, when COVID hit, it kind of messed up everything, right? With higher education, attending classes and so I was sitting there one day and I was thinking, I think maybe this is the universe telling me it's time to start phase 3. As much as I love being in the classroom, I really want to get outside of the classroom and see how I can be of service to just the world in general. So I decided to focus on organizations and seeing how I might be able to help organizations, especially now that we're getting back into the workplace. We need to relearn how to have some conversations. We need to learn how to talk about difficult topics. And so that's phase 3, outside of the classroom, working with organizations and just trying to help as much as I can wherever I can.
Oh, that's amazing. So you've been teaching for that long?
Yes, it has been a long time. So it's really funny when students come into the classroom and students are really funny. Some of them will try to take it to the edge, kind of like children. Whenever you have children, you learn that they like to kind of take you to the edge where they want to find how far they can push you, and students are the same. And I have to tell them, look, I did not fall off the turnip truck just yesterday. So if your sentence begins with, you see what had happened was, I'm like, start over. So I have a lot of fun with my students, though. Over the years, I have learned that it's a privilege to really be in the classroom every semester. It's a new crop of personalities, new crop of values and belief systems, and the international students come into the fold, and we all just come from all over the place, and it really is a privilege to be in that position where I get to meet so many different people and hear their stories, and it just helps me broaden my understanding, my own worldview as well. So even though I kid about it, I really do enjoy it because it really is a privilege to do that.
And talking about that, I was reading an article that actually was written by one of my journalists. And the article that I was surprisingly to learn that more women are teachers than men. It's just a quick question. Why do you think that we have more women teachers than men?
That's an excellent question. And I think I think the answer is very complex because I think it is a combination of our culture, a combination of what we perceive to be whatever the qualifications, and not necessarily the qualifications, but, what are the personality traits that we expect teachers to have? We tend to see teachers as caring, empathetic, listening, right? Almost like a substitute, not childcare necessarily, but, definitely someone who is in a position of being a guardian. And that, I think that holds true whether we're talking about K-12 or, even in my classroom, a lot of times I begin to feel very maternal, toward my students because I care about them and I want them to do well. So I think there's a little bit maybe of a stereotype as well. And maybe that can be a little off-putting, for men who might otherwise would really enjoy going into the profession, Yeah, it's a really complex thing. I do think it's just a combination of culture, our values, the expectations of who teachers are, and also the pay. Let's not
Yes.
the pay, I think, if I were a guy and I'm looking at how much am I going to make as a teacher, dealing with a bunch of kids in the classroom versus going into, some other field that's going to be a more technical, type of field, Yeah, sometimes you can't blame them, right?
No. And I think that us also as women, we have a more care for our children because we see them in a different way than I mean, even at home, if you have kids, the way you treat your kids, your husband treat them a little bit tougher than compared to you kind of try to be a little bit more caring. So I think that's have some, like you said, something to do with it. It's
yeah. And the funny thing about that though is, there needs to be a good balance. And I think that's why it's really important to have men go into the teaching profession because some children, unfortunately, if they don't have a strong male role model, in their life, and you have a mom or you have a bunch of women surrounding you that are constantly coddling you, right? Or constantly in your corner, constantly, you know how we are,
Unfortunately.
We really do need to have someone in our life who is able to say, hey, look, I love you, but my type of love is going to be a different type of love. I love you. And the way I'm expressing this love is because I am going to challenge you. I am going to make you a little bit uncomfortable. I am going to make sure that you grow in this area. And sometimes I'm going to have to let you fall in order for you to learn how to pick yourself up and learn how to navigate that more effectively next time. And so I think, that I think men in many ways come to that more naturally than women do. And I think it has something to do, differences. Yeah, of course, there's, masculine traits and feminine traits that we can get into. But I think at the end of the day, they really do. They really can provide a very important service, as a teacher to a lot of these students who need that type of love and affection and, leadership, really.
I agree, Jen. And with everything else that's going on in this world right now, we need it more than ever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you on that. So you have had a quiet, how do I say that? Eventful life, I have to say. Like you said, you have been in the Marine, and you are a Marine veteran right now, a first-generation college graduate, a PhD candidate, a TEDx speaker, a coach, author, and then not to mention a cancer survivor.
Yes.
Right? You fight it. You run it. So how do you look at it all, and do you think it's made you who you are today?
That's an excellent question. I take a different perspective on that. I think back to how I grew up. I had a pretty traumatic childhood in that, I came from a broken home, and in both homes there was some violence, there was drug abuse, there was alcoholism. And so I had to learn to grow up very quickly, as a child. So I think that's one of the reasons why when I went into the Marine Corps, I really needed that structure. I really needed, some type of a solid foundation at that time in my life. Because, when you're 18, you're setting out on your own for the first time. You're just still trying to figure out the world. And so going through Marine Corps boot camp, I don't think it necessarily helped shape who I am versus, I think more so it helped reveal who I am. You have to have a lot of resilience. There's, one of the things that a lot of people will ask when they ask about boot camp, it's always focused on the physical stuff, like the push-ups and the running and, everything that you have to do. And, anybody who's been through boot camp will tell you the physical stuff is the easy stuff. It's the mental stuff that's the hardest. And so I think that mental resiliency that, I had to build that as a child. And so, life happens, and I'm certainly not the only person that has had to experience some really awful hardships. It does seem pretty eventful though. Yeah. Going yes. from that to, being a breast cancer survivor, starting your own business certainly is not an easy task. I mean, there's so many things that I think we all experience in this world. And each one of those experiences is an opportunity that's going to help peel back another layer of who you are. And every time we go through something that is difficult, it's actually helping to build up our resiliency, for the next thing that will happen. I mean, unfortunately, life is hard, right? Life can suck pretty bad sometimes. It really can, and so the only thing we can do is focus on what is it in front of me that I can control right now. And then everything else, the world's falling apart around us. I can't control those things, but, let me focus on this. So yeah, I think every crucible that we go through, it just peels back another layer, and it more so reveals who we are underneath and gives us that opportunity to, overcome whatever that battle is that each one of us is facing.
So pretty much what if I understand correctly, from you is that sometimes, not sometimes, everything is already inside us. It's a matter of getting it out. And sometimes we have to go through certain things for that to actually reveal itself to, I'm capable of doing this.
Yeah. I think everything, we hear the word mindset a lot. And sometimes I hate the word mindset because I feel like it's overused in some ways. Sure. But, when you think about your internal strength and where that comes from, everything on the outside that's happening, if the world's falling apart, if someone calls you a name, we have so many triggers that exist in this world that can just kind of get us off kilter. But, and this is something that I've talked to my students and I've talked to my clients about is, for example, language. You know, if somebody says something that you find offensive, or let's say somebody calls you a name and it's really awful, is their opinion about you defining who you are? You know, is their opinion about you really impacting who you are at your core? You know, like other people's opinion, and I've heard this, but other people's opinion of you is none of your business. Like, you are who you are, regardless of what anybody else says. That's not going to change who you are. So at the end of the day, what do you care what they think about you? Because at the core, you know who you are. Their opinion's not going to change it. Don't give other people the power, you know, to minimize you in that way. And so that's what I mean by that internal type of strength. If someone else does something, or if something happens, and it's jarring, it's upsetting, absolutely, everyone has a right to be upset for a while. And then you got to figure out, what am I going to do with this? You know, what am I going to do with this information? Am I going to allow it to completely ruin my whole day, my week, my month, you know, everything? Am I going to hold on to that? Or am I just going to let that go and say, hey, you know what, okay, that's what you think. But at the end of the day, what you think really isn't going to change anything about me. I know it's not true. So, you know, I'm going to keep moving on. You know, that's an empowering thing once you have the ability to do that and to reframe things in that way, to be able to work that internal, you know, resiliency that we need in order to move on to the next thing.
Absolutely. Can you tell us about your organization, Communication 24/7 LLC, and on what are the features of the services that you provide?
Sure. Communication 24/7, I created this organization out of the desire to help other organizations manage their most difficult communication challenges. And the way I do that is I come into the organization and I help their workers develop the communication skills they need in order to be more competent and confident communicators. So I help them develop skills in learning how to identify different communication styles so that they can learn how to adapt their own communication styles to different situations. I help them learn how to give feedback more effectively, as well as receive feedback more effectively, because that's a two-way street. I talk about listening skills, you know, and the power of mindful listening versus just thinking about active listening. You know, there's all kinds of different ways to listen, and how you listen to something can have a profound impact on what you're hearing. You know, and that's going to impact the communication. And I help them deal with conflict management, you know, and resolution. And, you know, I do a lot of team building. So at the end of the day, that's my whole goal, is I truly just want to help people learn how to empower themselves, find your voice, and learn to use your voice so that you can impact the world around you and see the changes that you want to see, you know, in the world around you. And the only way we can do that is through effective communication, knowing how to communicate effectively so that we can, you know, impact things. So that's what Communication 24/7 is all about.
Love it. And you know, when you talk about communication, that is something, doesn't matter what you're doing in this world, even in relationship, family, communication play a big key. If you married someone that do not like to, he or she, they don't, you know, doesn't like to communicate, that become a problem, because that will ruin the relationship. For me, I felt like the number one thing that's make our divorce rate so high got to do with communication, because we don't communicate with one another. We just quiet, and then things just pop up out of nowhere. It's like, whoa, where's that coming from? And I love what you are doing. And it's not only just the education, but it's also the experience that you put behind it to make it happen. And you helping in the workforce, you are also helping these people at home, because now they understand how to communicate properly, not just at work, but also at home, networking, and then on social media, the people they have around them, like you said, in general.
Oh, it happens all the time. I'll be in a session and we'll be going over a concept, and I'll have somebody in the back of the room say, I'm trying this on my wife tonight. And I'm like, yes, do it. And then when we see you tomorrow, we want a full report. I want to know how that happens, because you're right. A lot of the tools that we talk about in the sessions that I do, they do work at home. Communication is communication. And so it impacts your professional life, your personal life. If you want to be involved in civic duties, it impacts your ability to be able to persuade others to, that's what it's all about. If you want to impact change, if you want to challenge the status quo, then you need to be able to know how to do that effectively. And it doesn't matter where you are. That's going to hold true everywhere.
Absolutely. So what are the services do you provide?
Well, my services is I prefer to go into the organization. So, if a client wants to be able to boost their employee morale, or if they want to create a more positive communication climate, within their organization, because that does impact the bottom line, for your organization. What they do is normally they'll contact me, either they'll find me on LinkedIn, or they'll go directly to my website, or, sometimes I've had people listen to my podcast and then contact me, that way. And, I'll just have a quick conversation with them so that I can get a better understanding of what it is that they're expecting. And, then we'll talk about when I can come into the organization to deliver the sessions. But I also hold virtual sessions as well, because in this day and age of COVID, we do have, it's this hybrid workforce, and not everybody is going to be able to do this face to face. So I do offer that as an option, to be able to do these things, either all virtual or some form of a hybrid, type of delivery, whatever we need. And I work with individuals as well. Sometimes I'll have somebody who's a new manager, and this happens a lot. Somebody is really good at their job, right? They perform admirably, so they get promoted. Yay, promotion. You're now a manager, and you're in charge of all these people.
Good luck.
And good luck. And all the skills that you had that you were using in your job, by the way, are not going to do you a bit of good when you're trying to manage all of these different personalities. And so that's where I step in. And, so I've had new managers contact me and say, hey, I need some help. And then, we might do 2 or 3 sessions to kind of, get them feeling more confident and comfortable in their managerial role, so that they can handle those things that happen. Like I said, we deal with humans, right? Every day, humans. And so we're going to have humans are going to mess up. We're going to have conflict. We're going to have disagreements. So we got to figure out how to handle that. Yeah. That's just the nature of the beast. That's just life. I like to, humans are very terrible listeners, by nature. And so I say communication and listening, those are skills just like any other skill. You got to work at it to get good at it. And so that's kind of the services that I deliver.
Absolutely. And so pretty much it's for organization, like companies, kind of like a customized kind of thing for them, because once you get in, and then if someone individual reach out to you, it's more like a one-on-one coaching kind of thing to help them.
That's right.
To help them there.
That's right.
Yeah, like my grandpa used to tell me, be quiet and listen. That will make you a better communication. That takes me a while.
That is 1,000% correct. Yes. A lot of people will think, oh, I'm going to be a good communicator. That means I'm going to be able to just talk all the time. And, no, a good communicator is someone who can listen really well and know how to listen really well and understand what to say and when to say it and how to say it, because the message you send may not necessarily be the message received. And so that's why your listening skill is the most important skill to develop if you want to be a more effective communicator.
One thing that my grandpa used to say is not only that when you listen, but also is how you process it to reply. And one thing I had problem with as a kid is I would reply super fast. And usually when I reply, my reply usually not the best reply in the world. And he will tell me, no, stop yourself for a moment after you listen and process that what you just listened to. And after you're done and after you're done processing, think about how you're going to reply to this. Sometimes you might need to walk away from it and not replying at all, because whatever you're going to say is going to come out of anger, which is not the best thing. So do you think that method is something that people should follow, or is it something that I'm sure there's more into it? My grandpa has passed away now and he was old. So
yeah, I mean, you know what? Very, 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 very smart person. So much great advice. Absolutely. The way we process when we're listening, listening is an intentional act, and you really have to focus. You have to pay attention so that you can process it and understand what it is that someone else is saying to you. And it's such an intricate process that we have to be able to take a moment to figure out, do I need to be engaged in more of an empathic type of listening? Is this person just blowing off steam? They just need someone to complain to, and if I can figure that out, then I can be the person who can offer that support. But oftentimes what'll happen is so many of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, we'll immediately switch on that critical listening ear, and we're listening to them complain, and then we'll say something like, well, have you tried this? Or why didn't you do this? And then what happens? They immediately get upset. Are you saying that this is my fault? Are you saying that, this is my responsibility? Blah, blah, blah. And now it's an argument between you and that person because they are assuming that you're trying to give them advice, and that's not what they were looking for. And so to take a moment and process it and then ask that question. And I've done this because, again, empathic listening is not my natural go-to listening style. Critical listening is. I'm going to solve the problem. So I will ask somebody, if they come to me and they start complaining, I'll flat out ask them, okay, are you here to vent? Or are you here because you need some advice? You want my take on things? And they'll say, I'm just here to blow off some steam. Okay, you go, have at it. Complain away, and I'm here, I got you, and then I'll say things like, I can understand why that would upset you so much. And yeah, that absolutely, you have every right to feel that way. I'm just reinforcing, and being that source of emotional support. So I think that's one example of, yes, stop, process. How are you supposed to be listening to this? And then that's going to help inform what the appropriate response would be at that time.
Absolutely. So you help the workforce at large, small scales organization become empowered communicators. Can you tell us how that actually works when you do that?
Yeah, when I go into an organization, a lot of times by the time I get to the organization, they're already experiencing an issue. And so I help them figure out what that issue is. And a lot of times the issue is not really what they think the issue is. For example, I worked with an organization up in North Carolina, and they were having a lot of conflict within the organization. But it wasn't outward conflict. Nobody was talking, but everybody was being passive aggressive, right? And so people think that they're upset at how so-and-so, sent out an email. And then another person is upset that so-and-so didn't respond to the email in time, right? And so instead of communicating and talking about the problem and arriving at a solution, they're doing all of this passive aggressive stuff, talking past each other, sending out more emails, and each one is going to the manager, and the manager's not doing anything because they're just placating all the individuals. And so I come in and, one of the things that I ask them is, let's talk about what our perception of conflict is, because a lot of times we don't want to deal with conflict directly because we're afraid of it. We fear it. It has all of these negative connotations associated with it. And so we got down to the core of what, the problem was. And everyone was afraid to just say what needed to be said. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. It all boiled down to a miscommunication from one email. And if one person had just said, hey, can you clarify this for me? Because what I'm understanding this to mean is A, B, and C. And that gives the other person the opportunity to say, oh, no. This is what it means X, Y, Z. So a lot of that comes from fear, and that fear of upsetting someone or offending someone is often times the wrong perception to have. If you go into a situation that you truly are just trying to understand, I'm just checking to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. That gives them the opportunity to re-explain it in a way that you can get it. Again, the message you send may not be the message received. Yeah, so that's just one example of something that I do when I go into an organization, and I just worked with that one specific department. And if you have a new employees coming together, something else that I do is I come in and I help them learn how to collaborate more effectively, learn how to be a team, learn each other's strengths, learn about each other's different communication styles, because we all need different communication styles in order for an organization to function. You need
That's
to have
true.
somebody who cares, who enjoys talking to people and the water cooler talk, and they want to hear about, Jeremy's soccer game over the weekend, that kind of chit chat thing. And, because the people matter, but you also need to have someone who is more action oriented. And, it's like, okay, we got to get this done. Thank you for the chit chat. Let's focus now. We can't chit chat all day. So we need to have people with all of these different styles. And so really at the end of the day, that's what I help these organizations understand. Within their individual departments, what are their different communication styles, and how do those styles work together most effectively so that the team, can be the most effective that it can be.
Wow, that's actually awesome.
It's a lot of fun. I love it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I was listening to your podcast. So you are the host of the Communication 24/7 podcast. And not to mention also you are an author of a mini handbook for Jackasses Communication and Relationships.
Yeah.
I love the name. It was straight to the point. Let's cut it all off. Let's go to the point. They got
That's
it.
Right. That's right. Mini handbook for jackasses.
So, can you shed some light on both and tell us what are they about exactly?
Yeah. Well, the podcast is an extension. It began as an extension of my organization, of my business. And so season 1 really was just me giving short tidbits, communication topics and tools that you can use in no more than maybe 10, 15 minutes, This season, I decided, what? It could be useful to hear from other people, and hear their perspectives about communication. And so I widened it from workplace communication to just, anything that's connected to communication. So just a couple of weeks ago, I did a live interview. So I need to edit it and then, put it out there. I'm really excited for it. I did my first special for Juneteenth, and I interviewed an artist who has created a lot of art that is focused specifically on highlighting the beauty and the humanity of Black people. And so she has, and her art is just amazing. And we had what was going to be a 1-hour podcast. We ended up having a conversation for 2 hours because we talked about how art can be such a powerful tool to begin these difficult conversations, because talking about race can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. It can be, and so having, that artwork to be something that can be a focus where we can explore it together and ask questions and listen to one another. That was just an amazing, episode. I'm really excited for that to come out. So that's just one example. I talked to a woman one time who was a tarot card reader. And so we talked about how tarot cards, kind of help with your internal self-talk. We all have conversations with ourselves. Let's
that's
be
for
real
sure.
Here. We talk to ourselves. So, so that's just another example of, we have all of these different ways that communication can happen. Because it does, obviously, it impacts every aspect of our life. So that's what has happened in season 2. And it has been so amazing. I have loved doing this deep dive and interviews and just getting other people, as well as experts in the field, in crisis communication and social media management and all of those areas as well, just to get their perception, because I'm no different from anybody else. I'm also learning as well. I continue to learn, never stop learning. Communication, the world changes, the culture changes, language changes, expectations change. So it's useful for me, to hear from other experts in the field as well. The book came about, frankly, out of frustration, because I listen to, you can get easily frustrated when you're on social media and everybody is so busy blasting out hyperbole and its ridiculousness, and nobody is willing to look inward to think about, okay, what can I do in this moment? What can I say in this moment that is actually going to do something, or what can I say that is going to help in this moment? Words are like food. We can use them to poison, or we can use them to nourish. And so that's what the mini handbook for jackasses came out of. Is I'm like, look, jackasses, stop for a moment. Just stop for a moment. Let's turn this inward. And instead of blaming everybody else about all the noise that's happening around us, what am I doing that's contributing to all that noise? What am I doing that's contributing to the what kind of poison am I putting out there? And so I need to take responsibility for my part in that. I can't control what anybody else says. I can't control what anybody else does, but I can control what I say and what I do, because I know that's going to have an impact, either a positive or a negative one. So I got to make that choice. So yes, jackasses out there, read the book.
I can't wait to read it, because I wish everyone else will look at it that way. Like, literally, if other people look at it this way, the world would be such a better place. You know what I mean?
It really would. It really would. We all have to take personal responsibility for our part, in every communication situation. We always have a choice to make, and it can either go in a positive or a negative direction. But so many people are so reactive, instead of just stop for a moment, like you said earlier, process it before I say it. Think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Please, everyone, let's do that more.
Yes, and read the book.
Yes, read the book.
So, how does communication help us improve our professional and personal relationships?
One of the things that is a great example of how communication skills can improve your personal and your professional relationships. And it's one thing that I did my TED Talk in 2017. It's called the Platinum Rule. And so many people grew up understanding the golden rule, right? There's some form of the golden rule in every major religion around the world. And basically it's treat others the way you want to be treated, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's great advice for children, when we need to simplify how we interact with others. And it's an easy way for them to try to understand what empathy is. But as we get older, our relationships become more complex, whether they are, personal or professional relationships. And then we begin to understand that, everybody's not like me. So maybe treating others the way I want to be treated, maybe that's not the best rule to follow. Whereas the platinum rule, treat others the way they want to be treated. That's a rule that can take you a long way in any of your relationships because it requires us to put ego in the back seat and to really focus on the other person. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What are their values? What are their beliefs? What are their wants? What are their dreams? And then if I can communicate with them and have genuine interest in that, right? And it doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but if I can walk away with just a better understanding of who you are and where you come from, that's going to strengthen that relationship. And again, I can still walk away and say, well, I don't share that exact same value. We do have some differences in opinion on that front, but I get it now. I get where you're coming from. And wow. that makes a world of difference in any relationship right there.
I never looked at it this way. Yeah, It does. Because sometimes we let that ego just take over ourselves and then we forgot the other person.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I wouldn't have done that, or I wouldn't have said that, or me. And it's like, well, they're not you. Yes. And, everyone comes from a different frame of reference. No two people will ever share the same frame of reference. Even when you grow up in the same household, with siblings, you're not the exact same person, as your sibling. You have, and siblings, as a matter of fact, can be like night and day sometimes, completely different. And not only in, everyday things like musical tastes or tastes in, dramas, all of that, it could be political, differences. So everybody is going to have a different frame of reference that's going to shade that lens through which they see and view and experience the world. So we really do need to be more open to try to understand, where that person is coming from, because they have had a different lived experience, from us. And just because something has not happened to me does not mean that it hasn't happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I really do think that platinum rule, practicing that platinum rule, that one thing right there is so powerful in any relationship, personal as well as professional.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you on that. So you've done all of these things. Marrying, that was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work too. Thank you for your service, by the way. Teaching, well, we need great teachers like you to make sure our kids actually really become smart. You know what I mean? So then you become a speaker, TEDx, you write a book, you have a podcast out there that can help a lot of people with communication. But what next for you in the company? You're an entrepreneur. You have your own business. You are making a huge impact in this world. So what's next?
What's next is I'm always thinking about the bigger big, right? What's next for me is I really would love to somehow have a national conversation. I'm so concerned about the divisions, in our country. And it's not just the divisions that exist between, different political factions. I mean, even within political parties, there are a lot of divisions that are occurring, and everyone is speaking louder, and everyone is speaking more irrationally day by day. Everyone is shutting down the willingness to listen, the willingness to learn, the willingness to just be open to different ideas. And everyone is so unwilling to allow people to express their views, especially if they think that they're going to be offended by those views. And for someone who is in communication, I'm really concerned that if we don't find a way to get back to being able to have conversations, and again, at the end of the day, we don't necessarily have to agree on specific items.
No.
But just being able to have that conversation, to reach an understanding, to find some type of common ground. The more you talk to people, the more you find that we all have a lot in common. We really do, if we just give it a chance. So that's what's next for me. I don't know how I'm going to make that happen. I don't know how I'm going to be able to impact a national conversation. Maybe that is a huge undertaking, and maybe the way to do that is just, one person at a time. I don't know. But I'm going to continue talking about this, and any stage that I can get on, any podcast I can get on, any books that I can write, get anyone to read them. I just truly want to impact our world in a positive way so that we can just get back to seeing the humanity in each other and get back to having those conversations so that we can create and maintain stronger relationships, even with those who we think are vastly different from us. I think there is a way to do that.
And you know what, Jen? I have no doubt. And I will be sitting here I'll be your biggest cheerleader, because we need that. The world is upside down. Our country is upside down.
Yeah.
And I feel like us as women, it's our duty to we give birth, so we are able to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I just released a new episode today talking just about that.
I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah. I hope a lot of people listen to it, and I hope that it just gets people engaged in conversations. That's the most I can hope for. Just get into conversations.
Absolutely. So if there's any suggestion, advice that you want to give to women out there?
As far as in the workplace, for women, there's a few items I would like to address for women in particular. Sometimes we can find ourselves in a situation, especially in different workspaces, where we might feel isolated, we might feel alone, we might feel as if no one else, in that workspace understands us, because, it's like one of us and 20 other guys, right? It's just, it can be a very lonely experience. So I would recommend reaching out, joining different communities, joining different networking, or going to different networking events, because it's so easy to feel isolated, and there's no reason to feel that isolation, because there are so many wonderful communities, that are out there, that are open and will, help you understand that you're not alone. Another piece of advice that I would like to give is, when we're reading the news and when we're watching the news, just be mindful of how we're consuming that, because I think that is one of the things that's at the core of us not being able to have these conversations. If you find yourself always watching just one single news source and it's biased on either side of the spectrum, force yourself to consume a variety of sources so that you can get a variety of perspectives. Don't be afraid to be challenged a little bit. Don't be afraid to open your mind to alternate viewpoints. Again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but how do you know that you don't agree with it if you don't even know what the viewpoint is? That only serves to make us stronger, and as women, how can we be prepared to be a voice? And how can we be prepared to challenge the status quo if we don't even know what the other voices are saying? It only strengthens us to understand all sides of any issue. So I think that would be another piece of advice that I would have for women in that way. Get engaged, broaden what you're listening to, what you're viewing, what you're reading, and that's only going to make you a stronger person as far as being able to communicate what you think about these issues. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. When you talk about the news, it's like, oh, that's another whole conversation. Oh God.
I know, right? I know. But it does have it, it's that's what I'm talking about, this trying to affect how people communicate with one another, and social media, the news, all of that is having a profound impact on our ability to just have a conversation. It's really troublesome. It really is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I get to a point where I stop watching it just to make sure I don't actually go crazy. So
yeah, you are not alone.
I stopped watching it. It was like, whatever's happening, gonna happen. I can't stop it, so I'm not gonna worry about it. So let it be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But thank you so much, Jen, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Anything else you'd like to share with us before I let you go?
No, just thank you so much for this opportunity to have this conversation, to allow me this space to kind of talk about all the different things that are bothering me, in this world. Sometimes I feel like that's, as a communication person, that, I feel like a lot of times that's what my message is. There is a lot of good out there. We just need to be able to get to that good together, and communication is the way to get to that good.
Absolutely. There's no other way to do it. I appreciate the time. I appreciate your knowledge and everything else you have been doing. It's amazing. And I'm just blessed to be able to talk to women like yourself that are just doing great things and changing the world, because that's what we need. That's what we need to be doing. And knowing that you are out there, I feel like I'm not alone, and other women also know they are not alone. So we are out there helping. It's a matter of us get together and talk about it.
That's right. That's it right there.
Interesting conversation with Jennifer. Communication is the key. It doesn't matter if it is in your business, relationship, friends, or family. Communication plays a very important role in our life. Some of us are not good communicators, and that's fine. But seek help, because as a small business owner, you need that. Thank you, Jennifer, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode with Jennifer. And to learn more about Jennifer and Communication 24/7 LLC, visit www.communication247.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.